I'm back.
Chicago Marathon. What's up, mate? Here we are. Let's go.
Notification. Starting to feel it.
And I'm also back with a little bit of bling, being the Chicago Marathon medal. My third marathon overall, and also my second world major ticked off. It's crazy when you look at a marathon medal and realizing how much of a story is in each of them now. So this is the third story in the marathon collection, I guess. So I thought I'd do a bit of a race recap in the form of a story and how it all went. So without further ado, let's get into it. I arrived over in Dallas a week prior to the marathon to allow myself to get settled into the time zone and also adjust, ready to go for the marathon itself. Got out for a run on the Tuesday, so a couple days after landing, and went along the Katy Trail. So it seems like that was quite a popular running destination, and it was funny running from downtown to the Katy Trail. I actually got honked more as a runner than I did when driving over in that city, completely new to the concept of driving on the right side of the road, but also driving on the left side of the vehicle. Purpose of that shakeout run was obviously to get the blood flowing after a big 15.5 hour flight over from Melbourne. Smooth sailing, actually got quite a lot of food and snacks on there. Managed to get up every now and then, but definitely needed that shakeout run to clear the legs ready for the Sunday following. A few days after landing in Dallas, did find that I was quite heavily jet lagged coming back to the apartment that we booked, feeling like we needed just a 20-minute nap, turning into an almost 2 hour sleep, staying up to almost 3 in the morning the following day. So it wasn't until I think the Thursday, or even actually the Friday, the day that we flew out to Chicago, before I found my body clock switch over to the time zone there. In attempt to minimize the effects of jet lag over there, I downloaded an app called Time Shifter. Now, this was created by someone who used to work at NASA, and it mainly helps your body adjust before flying out to your destination. So you're almost ready and clocked over to that specific time zone to enjoy the energy that you've got as soon as you get there, pretty much. Didn't quite follow it to a T. At some points it had me needing to go to sleep at 9 p.m. Before flying out to Dallas, and then getting up at 3 a.m. to adjust to the time zone over there. Didn't quite help me on the trip over, but was interesting just to experience to see if this could help with that energy. Finally adjusted to the time zone, we ended up heading over to Chicago on the Friday afternoon, flew Frontier Airlines, which I believe is one of the budget airways that is used in the US. And obviously with going over to the US and wanting to see what people's experiences were like for accommodation, driving, flying, budget airlines, etc., discovered that Frontier didn't have the best reputation on YouTube and on the internet. However, we had such a good experience. Managed to book these seats where I was supposedly in the middle, but it was part of like almost a 2-row exit that allowed me to have pretty much a clear spot on the plane free, as well as my partner sitting on the aisle seat, which he liked to. And overall, we left on time, the service was great, and we got there on time as well. So I had really no complaints whatsoever when it came to flying over there. We ended up catching the Blue Line down to our hotel, which was about a 15-minute walk from the station, staying on the south side of the river, I believe you call it, and pretty much right opposite the Trump Towers. Did come in clutch though on race day, being such a short walk away from the starting line. Upon landing on the Friday night, actually managed to get a good solid 8 hours of sleep that night too, and I felt like With my body adjusting in Dallas on the Thursday night and that additional good sleep on the Friday night, was well rested come marathon race day. We got to the Saturday and this was where I was picking up my race bib and packet, deciding to catch the Metra electric trains over to the expo where it was located. Funnily enough though, the trains were running to a Sunday frequency due to some maintenance works that was happening. So I believe it was running every hour or so. Originally hoping that I'd get there right at 9 o'clock when the expo would open, suddenly realizing our train wasn't leaving until 10 past 10 and just seeing a big collective of runners gathering at the station waiting for the platform to be announced. As soon as we got to the expo, my goodness, it was packed and chaotic. A big positive though, when it came to the bib collection process, it was super streamlined and quick. I think I had my bib in my hand within probably about 6 minutes of walking into the expo. But then getting my race packet with my drop-off bag was a bit more of a journey, having to walk through the entire expo to pick it up at the end of it. Before collecting my packet, I decided to have my go at trying to pick up some merch from the expo store, but it was just every man for themselves almost in that little section where people were shopping and lines just chaotically busy. So I forewent that and decided, look, I'll go to the Nike store, which was only about another 10-minute walk from where I was staying after the marathon. Due to how busy it was, I didn't really hang around the expo too much. I was really only set on getting some Chicago merch to show off coming back to Australia. So ended up going in and out, meeting back up with my partner and her mum before venturing off and pretty much having the rest of the day off of my legs to chill out and prepare for the marathon itself. When landing on Friday, I didn't get the chance to do a shakeout run on that Friday or even pushing it to the Saturday, deciding I'd just leave it at the one run that I completed in Dallas. And overall, my legs felt ready to go and was in a pretty good headspace. Finished off the Saturday night with my pre-race dinner. Luckily, this was organized through the running tour company that I went through, Traveling Fit. So we had pasta, potatoes, and all different sauces to have before the big race. I will admit, in comparison to my previous marathon, my carb loading wasn't the best for this one, and it was quite a dirty carb load, finding myself eating a lot of takeaway in Dallas on the Thursday and Friday, and then also on the Saturday in Chicago. Did pick up some bread, some peanut butter and honey for marathon race breakfast, as well as some Gatorades that I had throughout the day just to top up with liquid carbs essentially. On the Saturday night, ended up getting to bed at around 10 p.m. and got up at 4:30 a.m. to have my peanut butter and a honey on my bread, as well as sipping on my Gatorade drink. Alongside my 2 pieces of toast and the Gatorade, had 1 electrolyte tablet just to top up the sodium stores as much as possible. It took me about 20 minutes or so to walk to the starting village, and security was super easy to get through. Managed to get a nice photo with my brother Tigger, brother Kyle, as well as Taylor, who was running her first marathon. So that was a really nice memory that we've got together. When in the starting village, after dropping off my bag, I only had to go to the loo once. The lines weren't too long, luckily being in the first wave of the marathon, and even had enough space to warm up around the fountain where most of the runners were staying. Before the race, I did actually forget to pack my Gatorade that I was having in the morning for breakfast into my drop-off bag, so ended up just taking the extra gel that I packed in the packet before dropping it off before the race started. I ended up getting to the starting corral about 10 minutes before the race started, and again, even had some room to do a few strides and some more stretches before the marathon started itself. It was very good vibes in the corrals. Everyone was super excited, but also very respectful of each other's space. Like, compared to New York, where I was quite squished up with the other runners, in Chicago, everyone was like respectful. We had a few talks with each other about what we were aiming to do for the run, and yeah, overall just such a great way to get ready for the race. I started the race with the 3:15 pace group and managed to find it super roomy as we all started to cross the starting line, with no real needing to worry about zigzagging past slower runners. In comparison to my previous 2 marathons, I was zigzagging almost up until the 15k mark before finding that space. And also starting off the race, didn't really experience any problems with my watch, and even going through the entire race, which was really nice. So had that automatically set to the auto lap for every kilometer, and that seemed to work really well for me. I did start pretty quick in the first 1 to 10 Ks, and I'll throw up my splits here so you can see as we work through the video. Hovering around the 4:45 mark, and it only got to the 5K mark where I decided to quickly pop off to go to the loo before getting back into it. Noticing how when crossing over the initial bridges in the first part of the marathon, how the graded parts of the road were covered, well, some parts of it were covered by the red carpet, decided to run on the grates and had no problems whatsoever. But for smaller runners with smaller feet, could definitely see that being an issue. So found with the SC Elite V4s was a very sturdy surface for me to run on them with no real troubles there. 11 to 20 Ks kept a very similar pace, averaging around the 4:50 mark too. So again, I mentioned that I did start out quite hot, but even in that 11 to 20K mark was just about finding that rhythm, and overall just felt I was needing to control my breathing a bit. Found I was probably pushing just a little bit too hard from the excitement and just wanted to contain myself ready for that second half of the race. Through to 20 to 30 Ks, and this is where the race really started to start for me in terms of the mental battle, but also the physical one. I crossed the half marathon mark at 1:43.46. So this worked out to be 4:55 per kilometer or 7:55 per mile. And this was smack bang where I wanted to position myself. I had a bit of time banked up to rely on in case of a sudden decline in pace towards the end of it, and knew that as long as I continued at this pace would finish quite strong. In the 31K to 42.195 kilometer section, this was when I really started to just battle with myself. Conditions out there were quite warm for me at around 15 or 16 degrees. I have to double check and I'll put it on the screen to make sure. But it was around the 34K mark where I really started to get into my head and the battle started to happen. When at the aid stations, I usually grabbed 2 waters, one to drink and consume for myself, tipping the rest of it over my head, and then the second one, even just tipping it over my head to cool my body right down. And I found this really helped. Funnily enough, like after taking my gels and consuming some water to freshen up, I'd get a little bit dizzy after drinking the water, but then suddenly felt that huge energy lift. So it's crazy that even on those stations where I didn't have a gel and just took some water, how much energy you actually get from using the water. Around the 36 to 37K mark was also when I was trying my best not to look at my watch. Obviously not following the course blue line as closely as I could throughout the run. My watch was approximately 600 meters ahead in time. So although I was getting up to say 37 Ks on my watch, it was another 600 meters away before I officially crossed the 37K mark. I got to my final aid station that I used at around the 40K mark there, deciding to stop running to have some water to let my body settle. And that was almost a pivotal moment because I knew I was hurting quite a bit at that point there, thinking, okay, you can just walk this little bit during the aid station and, eventually get back to running. But I was like, no, I know if I continue walking for the entirety of this aid station, I'm just going to stop. So I was like, okay, drink your water and get back to running. And I'm so glad that I did, because my pace in those final 3 kilometers was just slowly and steadily declining kilometer by kilometer. I was definitely in the pain cave in that final 2 kilometers, noticing quite a few runners were starting to pass me too, and even having a cheeky glance at my watch thinking, okay, this is going to be very close with the result time in what I was hoping for. But in that final 2 kilometers, it was the first time in a marathon where I was actually able to absorb the energy from the crowd. And Chicago itself was, I'd say, even on par with New York last year in terms of just so much energy, and hearing my name chanted with it displayed on my singlet was such a huge mental boost. And full credit to both the supporters out there for the marathon, but also the volunteers in getting involved and really uplifting each runner. I wasn't able to pick up the pace in those final 2 kilometers, finding I couldn't quite execute the race plan that I showed you all previous to flying over to Chicago, but did find that I managed to run it at a very consistent pace, which I saw a few comments in my race strategy video saying like, look, Chicago is a race that you can run consistently, and I totally agree there. Do think if it was slightly cooler, I may have been able to push for a bit more of a faster finish, but overall was so happy that I was able to cross the line. Though I did have flashbacks to New York when we started to run up that first and only incline of the race before actually turning the corner to the finish too, but managed to push through that. I saw quite a few runners actually struggling there, so it gave them a bit of a push and motivation to get up there and to cross that finishing line coming home strong. Now, before I share my elusive result time, if you haven't looked it up already, I thought I'd share the good, the bad, and the ugly with my marathon race experience. A big perk to crossing the finishing line and the post walk to the 27th mile party was the amount of snacks and nutrition that you were offered after the race too. So I picked up bananas, water, donuts from the local Stan's Donut shop, LCM bars, protein shake, and also a beer for my partner. I don't drink beer, so I was like, look, I ran a marathon for you. I gave it to her after getting out of the exit area there. And I personally think this was way better than the nutrition pack that I received in New York last year too. So big kudos to Chicago Marathon organizers there for nailing the post-race nutrition. I felt that was an ample amount of food and small enough to consume at an easy pace post-marathon to not worry about what I was going to eat when returning to the hotel. Overall, the course experience was just amazing, and I had to put this in the good category here. From getting to see the different neighborhoods of Chicago, the insane crowd support, but also the plentiful stock at aid stations and being able to pick up water or Gatorade when needed was a game changer. And throughout the entirety, I really didn't have to worry at all. Another good was actually being able to start in wave one, and I feel like I wasn't too much of a hindrance with the other runners out there, but being able to start with a faster group allowed me to find my groove a lot quicker than I have in my previous two marathons. Again, I have to mention the crowd and also the aid station support that I received across the race. Like, it was so incredible and arguably the biggest highlight that I had coming from the race there. Another good was, again, being able to run my third marathon with my Bala Tigger, being able to do New York, Ballarat, and then Chicago together, and also my brother Kyle as well as Taylor for completing her first marathon was such a special reminder to me that being surrounded by like-minded people, getting to share the same journey was just such a heartfelt experience too, and I've got so much love and respect for all three of you too, so just wanted to also say a big congratulations on all of your runs there too. And it's just special how so many runners congregate for these big marathon races together. It's a really special and unique experience that I didn't realize how much power running had. Lastly, I think the biggest good that I could mention was having my partner there to see me cross the finishing line for Chicago. Unfortunately, she had her final semester exams at the time that I was flying over to run New York, so it was a very special moment getting to see her cheering me on just before crossing the finishing line too. So again, wanted to say a big thank you to you, Hannah, and I love you so very much for being able to share that third marathon with me. Another big shout out to Andy, Hannah's mum, for also making the journey over to watch me run my race in Chicago there. When it gets to the bad, like, these are only just really nitpicky things that I had too. I think arriving on the Friday afternoon was a downfall for me, having to attend the expo on the Saturday when it was quite chaotic. So if you are looking to do Chicago in the future, would highly recommend going a little bit earlier to make sure you can get to the expo either on the Thursday or the Friday to have a bit more of a pleasant experience to see how exciting the expo is. When exiting the 27th mile party after running the race, signage was a little bit confusing. They had the runners reunite section of the marathon there where family and friends could meet their runners, but I found myself actually exiting through the entry spot with where all the other family and friends were coming to greet their runners too, whereas the sign above that exit point with two different sections said exit. I would have wanted to see, like, say, an exit one on the right and then also like a do not enter one on the left too, but overall that wasn't too painful. I did get a few comments from family and friends saying, like, look, this is where we need to enter from, but after running 42.195 kilometers, really just wasn't in the mood and was just moving with the other runners that just went through that spot too.
We've got Spain and China, Great Britain, Chihuahua, Mexico, Belarus, Canada, Chile, Philly, Brazil, Thailand, Dominican Republic, China, Qingqiu of Beijing, Sergey from Ukraine, Paolo from Italy, Juan Hernandez of Costa Rica, Angeloma from India, Jessica and Claire and Douglas, and Liu of China, Juan Cortez, Mexico, Bu Design, Singapore, Camila, Thomas Caldwell, Sarah Fure from Hoboken, New Jersey, I believe. Olivia Bishton, London, USA. Let's go.
So now the reason you probably clicked on this video in my result time. So I crossed the finishing line in a time of 3 hours, 30 minutes and 51 seconds. Just 52 seconds short of my goal time of a sub 3:30 marathon. While obviously my Garmin as well as my Strava indicate that I did complete the marathon distance in a sub 3 hour 30 time, I know that being a proper runner, have to stick with my official result time from the Chicago Marathon, and I can't be upset with that too. It was another 13-minute PB from my time in Ballarat, and again, I've only been running consistently in this long distance event for a year now too, so still got plenty of time there to improve on and eventually hope to go for my goal of running a sub 3 hour marathon. It truly was the kind of course that you could run at a consistent pace for the entirety of it, so was a little ambitious I think with trying to push for a negative split in the later half of the marathon. And overall, I feel like this was another good lesson in stopping myself from being overly ambitious and trying to achieve big mammoth efforts as well when I've still got so much to improve on in my running. If there was one thing that I could do differently when it came to the Chicago Marathon, it was probably just to start a little bit slower. I won't lie, I got caught up in the energy of the start of the race and also running with a pace group in, sections that I hadn't really stuck at that kind of pace for a majority of my marathon training. Upon reflection though, after running the marathon and reflecting on writing some notes for this video, it was a good gauge to see where my current fitness level is at for running those faster, sub 3:15 and gold standard hoping for me running a sub 3 hour marathon, to see where I exactly on that bar I actually sit at the moment. And it was quite surprising to see that it was only really that final 7 kilometers where I started to fade, seeing my final kilometer splits just slowly increasing ever so slightly. But again, I can't be unhappy with a 13-minute PB, and reflecting on when I ran New York in 4:28 to Chicago in 3 hours 30, like almost a full hour off of my first marathon time. So what's next for me? And I don't think I've actually publicly announced it on this channel here. I am actually running the Tokyo Marathon in 2025 to go for my 3rd world major start. So the journey continues, we're not stopping here, and I am so keen to run in Tokyo. Visiting there earlier this year for my 2nd time, I think it's been a country that I've loved ever since going there when I was 15 for the first time, and I'm just so keen to get back into training and also showing you all like my journey towards it. Let me know what you want to see when it comes to me training for the Tokyo Marathon. I am considering looking at getting a coach and probably going to do around a 12-week marathon plan for that one. So you'll definitely see a lot of that content coming onto the channel soon. If you're watching this and you ran Chicago Marathon, I hope your race went well. And if you're tuning in just to see how I went, just again wanting to say thank you for all the support on the channel and investing your time in watching this journey to getting my 3rd marathon completed. For now, just a few casual runs to ease back into running, and I will let you mob know when I'm starting my training for Tokyo. Not too sure what exact time I want to hit. Definitely want to go sub 3:30, obviously, but yeah, stay tuned and we'll let you know as soon as I get started. I'm Jack. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Catch up.